Thank you for joining us again for our Lenten journey. We are continuing to awaken to God in our lives and the ways that we can journey together and become better followers of Christ. If you have your sand, I encourage you to take it out in your rocks. And then if you want to take a moment to pause the video, go get a cup of water and maybe something to go under the bowl in case you spill. We're going to get messy today. So this week, we wanted to talk about how it's not enough to recognize that we cannot hold on to all the details and all the things in our life. We don't have control. We need to let go of the things that weigh us down and trust in God. We also need to get out there and do the work of God. And once again, we still can't be in control, really. We have to make room for the Holy Spirit. That can get pretty messy.
Here we go.
So I want to know, and you can think about it at home, I want to know what are some things that you either have been kind of dreading diving into because you know it's going to be a mess, or things that when you think of like messy service that come to mind, or things you're in the middle of that you feel are important to your work as a Christian, but maybe you just kind of wish everything could be neat and tidy, and instead it is not. Or Paolo, you want to start us off?
Oh, yeah, sure. My hands. And I always think that the call to journey with Christ, the call to be part of the body of Christ in the world, that we're called to get involved in people's lives, in what's happening in the world. So the call of the church not to be isolated, separated, apart from the community in the world, is to be in the world, and but not from the world, right? We're imagining a different community, a different kind of society that is based in God's love and grace, and love of neighbor and love of creation. So for me, it's hard work, and it's work that we need to be ready to have our hands get dirty, and the things will not be as clean and neat as we would like. And for me, it's always a struggle, right? Because I think I would like to have things to be clean and not have my hand dirty or messy. So, especially now as we begin to reopen the church, and we are trying to navigate this time, that is very awkward. Masks, no masks, how are we gonna do church in the future? Are people coming back to the pews or not? Who's gonna come back, and where might miss this? A lot of unknowns. And so the hands, we have to be busy reaching out to each other, loving each other, doing ministry, and it's not always easy.
No, it's not. It's certainly not always easy. Whenever I think about the messiness of our call, and when you're practicing ministry, I don't know if Charlotte, you or Paulo think about that. I think about it all the time because it gets pretty messy. Lines get crossed about what's part of my call, what's part of my job, what's part of just living my life.
And setting healthy boundaries too.
Yeah.
It's hard. It doesn't always stay nice and neat and clean. Sometimes it gets messy. But whenever I think about the messiness of our call, I think of my first semester in seminary when I read the book Life Together by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And I remember reading that book, which is about this this community of young Christian students who are trained to be ministers, and the life that they shared together. And it's this kind of beautiful book about this community. I remember saying to one of my colleagues and mentors, like, why don't we just do this? Why are we here in this church? Why don't we all go live together in this beautiful, blissful community? And that was when I really first heard the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's life, who was killed for leading a political plot against the Nazis in Germany. Talk about getting your hands dirty, coming from a place of beautiful, blissful life together off in the woods. So sometimes I do feel that pull, like, would I be able to be more in touch with God and with Jesus and with my own spiritual self if I were able to cloister myself in the woods and in some beautiful place? Maybe, but Jesus calls us to get our hands dirty and messy, and I try to remember that every time I have that feeling of like, can't I just not worry about emailing or mask wearing or finding drivers to and from things?
Well, even right now, you're preparing to go on a mission trip, and you can get as many details in a row as you want beforehand, but it's gonna be messy.
Oh yeah, it gets messy.
And I know you're having some frustration right now because you feel like people in the church want the mission trip to happen, but they're not necessarily ready to get their own hands a little messy, right? Like you're having trouble getting volunteers, is that correct?
Yeah. There's just a million things that go into it, and that's definitely one of those situations where my hand's very messy with this trip and trying to balance all the things that go into it. But it's where we're called to be. So I'm just trying to remember that that's also where ministry happens, where life happens, is when your hands get messy.
Thinking about your example of retreat in the woods and a beautiful community, by total coincidence, I'm wearing my Pilgrim Lodge fleece today right now. And that's what I think of when I think of, a beautiful Christian community where you can really practice getting a little hint of what it would be like if everybody in your community understood the importance of love and care and honesty and just kind of being your true self all the time. It doesn't mean you're perfect, right? But it means we're all on the same page about why we're here and how we want to do things. And it's wonderful and invigorating and like nowhere else. But we always want to remind people, to bring it out into the world. And, people usually are just at camp for a week because when you're there for the whole summer as a staff member, you're in a bubble. You're not in the world anymore. You lose complete touch out of everything else. Everything is just about your little camp bubble, your camp world. And sometimes it's daunting to leave your nice, clean, in a metaphorical sense, not a literal sense, camp world and re-enter and have to deal with all the difficulties of being human in this human world. It's very tempting to just stay disconnected in that little bubble. Having Artemis, having a little toddler, helps me to relax. Because, normally you might be like, oh, no, don't touch that. Like, oh, that's dirty. Like, you don't need to play in that puddle on the side of the road. But then I have to stop and be like, what's the worst that could happen? Because she's having a wonderful time. And I want to help her find joy in this moment, Let's not be carrying fear. It's okay to get a little dirty.
Yeah, toddlers don't seem to mind getting messy.
No, or she loves baths. So she sees it as a bonus. Sometimes she'll be very messy at eating and she just looks at me and goes, bath?
Yeah.
Which is her bath. And she's just did I get messy enough to get a bath, Mama? I think, our calls are many forms, but it all requires us to let go a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, you at home, what's messy in your hands right now? What are the kind of things that might feel a little uncomfortable, that might feel out of your comfort zone? As we're getting ready to pray, I'm looking at my hands, and I know that I'm going to feel a lot of
feel better when you wash it.
discomfortable grains,
Yeah.
even in my prayer life. That's part of the call of discipleship, getting messy hands and finding out how to still pray, even though our hands are dirty.
Yeah, and not feeling like you're a failure because you can't keep your hands clean. Like recognizing that this means you're doing the work. It doesn't mean that you need to do better.
Yeah, and I think learning to live with the discomfort, that's part of our call and a beautiful spiritual practice, right? Because Christ calls us to follow Him, and it's not easy. And I think to acknowledge that we are uncomfortable sometimes, and it feels weird to have our hands so dirty. But I invite you to take some time and pause and think about those places in your life where it feels messy and dirty, but how also that's where God calls you to be right now, and how having your hands in this messy place could be also an opportunity for you to do Christ's work and to share God's love and grace with the world. So I invite you to pause and think about it.
This is more than just a moment's pondering. I feel like this is something I will keep thinking back to throughout my life, really, not just during Lent or whatever. It's am I getting my hands dirty? Are they dirty enough?
Are they dirty enough?
Or, have I been in the dirt too long and I need to take a step back because I'm starting to lose sight of why I do it. But I think with those thoughts in our mind, if I can invite the two of you to pray for us.
Yeah, I guess my prayer will be a little story. So there's this, there's a great story about a man who dies and he goes to heaven and he gets to the pearly gates, and an angel says, "Can you show me your wounds, your scars?" And the man says, "I have none." And the angel says, "So there was anything, there was nothing in your life that was worth getting hurt for, or maybe dirty, or that you would have a scar, so you could, because you loved so much that you went through that difficult time." So may God allow us to, or maybe encourage us to get to heaven with dirty hands, and show that we were really busy doing Christ's work. Amen.
Amen. It's a beautiful prayer. Well,
Right.
Thanks everyone.
Who's turning off the camera with their
turning
messy
it
hands?
That's late. I'm gonna have to wash my hands.
You can watch you wash your hands.
The icing on the cake for the video, right?
Yeah. I know, there's no paper towels. So it's just didn't think ahead. Everything's getting messy.